Welcome to the Pandemic FinUp Happy Hour. Today we're doing a special class, if you want to call it that. It's something I'm calling Give Me a Break. And I'm calling it that because I like plays on words, and today I'll be making mocktails. There are so many things to talk about with this category. There's a lot of people that choose sober drinking for a multitude of reasons. I've seen women that are pregnant want to participate in what they feel is the bar experience, people who are dealing with sobriety after having addiction, people who are watching their figure or on a diet. And there's also a lot to be said for knowing how to pace yourself if you are going to be in a convention or meetings all day, or maybe you're on vacation and you want to drink all day. Sometimes you can engage in lower ABV, which is a lower alcohol content cocktail, or a spirit-free non-alcoholic beverage. Now, I don't think there's any shame in drinking cocktails without the alcohol. I don't think that there needs to be a culture around it that it's kind of frowned upon, or people feel like they aren't going to be comfortable ordering those cocktails at a bar, but it's something you see quite a bit. So I know there's this big movement now trying to really embrace people who engage in sober drinking, and I think it's really nice. Some people do not like the phrase mocktail because they feel like it's shameful or it makes them feel embarrassed. Some people don't like the term spirit-free because it seems a little misleading. But for me personally, I just call them non-alcoholic cocktails. I like to make them very tasty. And I think that they deserve the same amount of detail to attention that a regular alcoholic cocktail would get. Because if all you're getting is juices topped off with club soda or just a lemonade with like a mashed fruit in there, it doesn't really feel like you're partaking in the same experience as everyone else. You don't get all these really cool flavors that come together, all these really pretty presentations. So for me, that's a very important feature when building recipes for this particular category. So that being said, I'm really excited to show you guys what I came up with. You're going to see some common trends. I'm going to talk to you about why you're seeing them, and then we'll discuss other alternatives that you can use for your alternative drinking. So for our first one, I'm going to be making something I call Kettle Head. And it's just kind of, again, play on words. It's got tea in it, and kettle head as in a pot head or a music head or an audio head. Whoever's into something really heavily is blank head. So calling this kettle head because it's got tea in it. Now, tea is a huge ingredient in non-alcoholic cocktails, but there's a really good reason for that. There's a wide variety of styles of tea. There's a wide variety of flavors among those. And then the tea itself, depending on how it is brewed, offers a mouthfeel, which is how something feels in your mouth, that can be tannic or astringent. And if you're unfamiliar with those terms, if you've ever had cranberry juice or a dry red wine, that's what that feels like. So when it feels like you have sandpaper in your mouth, or if it's just kind of makes your mouth do this, kind of like your whole palate dried out a little bit, that is astringency, or it can also be a tannin. So tea has that naturally. So it creates a sensation that is also felt with certain alcohols. So it's finding a way to create that mouthfeel without adding the alcohol. So you'll actually see tea in all of these cocktails today, but it is by no means the only agent you can use. So for the Kettle Head cocktail, there is tea, like we just discussed. And then there's a really cool ingredient that hopefully, if you're mixing along with me, you prepared based on the prep sheet that I send out at the beginning of the week. So this is a shrub. So if you've never heard the term shrub, it's a really old technique dating hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. And it originally was a technique to find a way to use produce that was on its way out. Like, you know it's going to go bad, but you're tired of eating all the blueberries you got at the farmer's market, or maybe those apples or that watermelon is just, it's going to sit there and you're going to end up tossing them. So if you think about how many people take bananas, buy them, forget to eat them, and then turn them into banana bread, shrubs are the banana bread of the beverage world, not just cocktails. You can make them with so many different things. You just need 3 core ideas. One is a fruit or vegetable, preferably something that's going to have some kind of juiciness to it. Berries work beautifully. I have made them with apples, cucumbers, celery, but it takes a little longer for the flavors to combine. So you do need a fruit or vegetable. You need a vinegar, and you need sugar. So what you're going to do is usually mix about, I believe the ratios that are easy to work with are about a half a cup of fruit or vegetable chopped up, or if they're berries, just a cup of or half a cup of berries, and then a half a cup of vinegar. So you match your vinegar to your fruit or vegetable. And vinegar, you can use almost any kind. You can use rice wine vinegar, red wine vinegar, malt vinegar, sherry vinegar, champagne vinegar, which is what I have here. Do not use white acidic vinegar. It's going to be really unpleasant and really aggressive. So you can also cut vinegars if maybe you're really into apple cider vinegar for the health benefits, but it's really abrasive. You can do a half-half mix. And then the sugar is to taste. So I usually add about half the amount of fruit that I added in sugar. So if I did a half cup of blueberries, in this case, with a half cup of champagne vinegar, I added a quarter cup of sugar. Put it in a jar, let it sit for anywhere between 4 to 48 hours. Shake it up occasionally, and then you'll end up getting a really pretty color, hopefully, if you picked a vibrantly colored vegetable or fruit. And then you just strain it out, and this is good in your fridge, and you can add it to your lemonades, to your teas, to your cocktails. You can add it to just soda water to give it a nice little punch. But they're super, super tasty. There is a cocktail back at the beginning of when this all started that I made with cucumber, apple, and I believe rice wine vinegar. And that was actually in an alcoholic cocktail with gin. It was really nice. But so today, for Kettle Head, we are going to take our glass first. So I have a rocks glass. This is actually a double rocks glass, which means it's a little bit bigger. And I'm going to measure half an ounce of my shrub. And I'm going to just pour it directly into my glass, just like that. Now, you always want to use this sparingly. Start small. You can add more because it is very strong. It's vinegar based. So think of it like salt. You would never just add half a cup of salt to rice. You would start in small pinches. So half an ounce of our shrub. And then the recipe technically calls for 4 mint leaves, but my mint plant doesn't like me, and my store was out of mint. So I'm going to be using basil today, and we're going to see how that works. But if you have mint at home, if you prepared for all of the things that I put on the list, then this would be your mint leaves. I'm going to take 4 basil leaves in this case, but if you have mint, use mint. And then I'm going to muddle that slightly, just kind of bruise the leaves, get some of that flavor infused into my shrub. And oh yeah, it smells really nice. Smells like minty basil blueberries. I think my brain thinks I'm having dessert and salad at the same time, but in a good way. So with that, I'm going to set this aside just a little bit. We're going to get a shaker. So for the rest of this cocktail, we're going to take a rooibos tea. Now, rooibos tea is an herbal tea, so it's not actual tea leaves. It's an herbal bush that then gets created into tea. So when I'm brewing tea to put into my beverages, I like to brew it double strong. So what that means is if I would usually use 1 tea bag for 6 ounces of water, when I brew it for cocktails, I usually double up on that tea bag. Now, when it comes to tea, you can brew it in a ton of different ways, just kind of like coffee. If you have loose leaf, you can do that. You can do it through a French press. You can do cold brewed tea where you let it sit in your fridge and brew overnight in cold water. You can do sun tea, which is something we do a lot in the South and in Texas, where you put it in a mason jar with the water and you let it sit in the sun in the summer and let it do the work for you. But I have 2 ounces of the rooibos tea. And then I'm going to add a 1/4 ounce of fresh lemon juice and a 1/4 ounce of agave syrup. I'm going to put all of that into my shaker. Perfect. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you are making non-alcoholic cocktails and using tea, tea can have caffeine in it. And if it is being served to someone who is also caffeine sensitive, it's a good idea to either pick decaffeinated teas or at least let them know that there's tea in there, because you don't want them to drink these wonderful non-alcoholic cocktails, but then be really, really jumpy all day. So just keep caffeine content in mind. I'm going to go ahead and put some ice in my shaker. I'm going to ice my glass that I have sitting right here. Perfect. And then cubes it. And shake that for maybe about 10 seconds. Good. Going to shaking that. I'm going to go ahead and strain it over my ice. And hopefully, yeah, you guys can see that on camera. Right here, I have like the little like ruby colored band, and then this is nice and yellow. I'm gonna take my cocktail spoon, and I'm not actually stirring the whole cocktail. I'm just kind of give it a light stir, just to kind of blend the colors a little bit. Notice how I haven't even inserted the spoon all the way. I'm just kind of moving the ice around so that there's more of an ombre effect with the color. Perfect. It's gonna kind of look like a sunrise, just a little. All right, I'm gonna add one more cube of ice because it's settled. And then I'm gonna top this off with tonic. Now, tonic is a fun little mixer, especially for non-alcoholic beverages, because it has so much flavor. You know, soda water and mineral waters are really nice because they have the bubbles, but flavor profile-wise, unless they're a flavored one, they don't really bring a lot to the table. But tonic, with its quinine content, which is a root, it has a nice little bitterness, so it adds that to the cocktail, which if you think of spirits, like whiskey, gin, tequila, vodka, all of those things, most people associate certain flavor profiles with that. They think alcoholic or boozy. They think aged, oaky, sweet, smoky if it's scotch, bitter depending on where it comes from, sweet if it's something like a rum. So those are things to think about when you do design non-alcoholic beverages. So the garnish for this would technically be mint leaves, but we don't have that, or I don't have that. So I'm gonna go ahead and insert this little basil, and yeah, I think that'll do it. Let's do basil and a lemon coil. Got that right there. There we go. Look at that, guys. Now, if you saw that at someone's table in someone's hand, you would never guess by looks alone that this is a non-alcoholic beverage. It's really pretty. It's got a color transition. You can see ingredients in it. It smells really nice and bright, but also kind of herbal. So that's obviously because of this giant basil sprig that I have in there, but you can get a little bit of the citrus and the tonic coming through. Oh, that's really good. So this is going to be something I would recommend for someone who enjoys lightly bitter things. So this isn't a bitter cocktail, but if you don't like tonic, this is not the cocktail for you. Or you could just swap out the tonic for a club soda or a sparkling mineral water or any other bubbly thing you like Sprite if you wanted it sweeter. But it's really nice and refreshing, really light, and it tastes complex, which is the most important thing, in my opinion, when it comes to a non-alcoholic beverage. Because if I'm drinking it and all I taste is bubbles and lemon, I'm going to be really upset. And I feel like it's just very disappointing if you're ordering something, for whatever reason you're ordering it, of this nature, for it to just be really one note. So guys, that is Kettle Head. All right. Moving forward, we're going to do another cocktail. It's going to be a similar style of build where there's some part shaken, some part that kind of sits on the bottom, and then some part that sits on the top. Now, this is also a really common technique with non-alcoholic beverages because people nowadays are trying really, really hard to not just give you a bunch of juice, right? So for me to not give you a bunch of juice, but also have you feel like it looks like a cocktail, I kind of need to go the extra mile. And that's where layering those colors or those flavors or those textures in a glass really help out, because you get to experience things that are evolving instead of just one thing, and here you go. So that being said, we're going to do another shaker. And in this shaker, I'm going to be adding a ½ ounce of orange juice. Now this one's going to be juicy, but this one's juicy because I wanted to create a mocktail, non-alcoholic beverage, spirit-free cocktail that felt kind of tropical and kind of vacation style. Because I feel like those are the easiest ones to really make non-alcoholic. I see virgin pina coladas, virgin daiquiris all the time, virgin mojitos, and I don't like that they call them virgin because it just makes them sound less fun, just because there's a certain connotation with that word. So I wanted to create something that had a bunch of those flavor profiles and would make you feel like you could be sitting by a pool with other people that are drinking these cocktails or on a beach drinking cocktails that are similar and not feel left out. So ½ ounce of orange juice, 1 whole ounce of pineapple. And you'll notice we're not going to add a whole lot of sweetener to this cocktail for that reason. So I'm also going to be using 1.5 ounces of coconut water. And that's because 1, electrolytes are fantastic and hydration is important. And 2, unsweetened natural coconut water has a certain salinity to it because it is something that grows in tropical climates. There's a little saltiness in the back end of coconut. So that kind of adds an extra depth to our beverage. So I've put those 3 ingredients in there, very simple. I'm going to add some ice and we're going to shake. I'm going to have this glass here. So I have a highball glass that I'm going to fill with ice. It doesn't want to cooperate. There you go. Luckily, this is my bar, my hands, it's fine. So my highball is filled with glass and it's off to the side. It's filled with ice, my glass. Off to the side. Shake for about 5 to 10 seconds. Also important to remember that when it comes to actual boozy cocktails, we tend to shake them a little longer because dilution is super, super important. Because we need that water to balance out some of the notes that are in alcohol so they don't feel hot. But when we're doing something that is non-alcoholic, if we shake it too much, we're going to dilute it and it's just going to taste watery. Nobody wants that. So I'm going to strain this over my ice, just like so. And then using my cocktail spoon, which if you don't have one of these, you can use just a regular spoon, but cocktail spoons are a little bit better. Or if you happen to have a bottle that can fit a pour spout, like the little spouts that they use at an actual professional bar, you could put one of those into your pomegranate juice bottle. And we're just going to pour about 1/2 ounce over the back of the spoon and let it kind of sink to the bottom of this cocktail. Perfect. So about a 3/4 ounce, give or take, can be a full ounce if you really like some pomegranate. And then again, I did say they all had tea, right? So there's a really cool line of sparkling teas that I was introduced to last year called Sparkling Botanicals by Rishi. Rishi is a company, let me put that up there nice and close. I don't know if the light's gonna let you guys see that, but yeah. I can take a picture, put it on the account so you guys can see it. But they also do a bunch of loose leaf things that you can purchase on their site. The teas are really nice. They have really complex flavors. So this one I'm using for this cocktail is a dandelion ginger. So that means I'm going to add a little bit of spice, a little bit of earthiness because dandelion is a root, and that's just really going to add a lot of complexity to this cocktail. It's also kind of fun that it already has the bubbles, that I didn't have to brew the tea myself, and that if you did this, you could serve it like I like to serve my shandies, which is like side by side with the extra part on the side. So I would have this like super chilled and then give a person an option whether to keep adding this to the cocktail if they like it and keep wanting to see the flavor evolve, or they can just have the rest of this solo because it's super tasty. Now, Rishi has a bunch of flavors. I chose dandelion ginger for this, but they have a black lemon. I think it's pronounced Shishandra berry. They have a maki, which is really nice. It's a fruit out of Colombia, which has kind of a red wine style flavor to it. They have a turmeric one that's really nice. So there's a lot of crazy flavors out there. And just with those alone, you could really amp up a cocktail. So that's how I'm bringing tea into the fold. I put that in there. And then I'm going to add some pineapple fronds, because again, trying to make this a little vacation-y looking, and a little orange slice. And this, guys, is something I call catching rays. You can tell it's kind of like a sunrise style cocktail. Isn't that nice? Now, if you wanted more of an ombre effect, you could absolutely do the little swirl with the spoon like I did on the other one, but I really wanted this one to sit on the bottom. So there you go. That, guys, is catching rays. Oh gosh, that tea is so good. Now, that being said, if you don't stir it, the only flavor you're going to get at the beginning is going to be the tea, right? Just like when people order a vodka soda, if the bartender pours the vodka on the ice and then tops it off with the soda water without mixing it, most likely all you're going to taste is the soda and then the vodka. So you don't necessarily want that. I would serve this with a straw because I really like people to be able to sip top layers of beverages so that they can understand that first flavor profile and then mix it in and see where all the flavors come from. That's just my personal preference as a bartender. I feel like it really makes the drink more exciting. It helps people understand flavors and explore flavors a little bit more. So I would serve this with a straw so that they can stir it themselves with the indication to sip it first and then stir. That, guys, is catch and raise. So nice, so pretty for like a pool party. Okay, so now what I'm really excited about with this last cocktail I'm going to make for you guys is I'm going to introduce you to a spirit-free spirit or a non-alcoholic spirit, however you want to call it. I believe the term they use is a distilled non-alcoholic spirit. Okay, so this particular brand is called Seedlip. It's going to be really hard to see because my lights are super bright and everything is like white today. But Seedlip is a really cool brand. They're out of England, if I'm not mistaken. They've been on the market a little bit longer than other brands that do the same idea. So in concept, a distilled non-alcoholic spirit is where they take a bunch of different ingredients and they do distill them, and then they blend those distillates together to where they can create something that is complex, and then you would basically use this instead of vodka or this instead of gin and whiskey and so forth. Now, it doesn't mean that this tastes like vodka or it tastes like gin or whiskey. Seedlip has multiple options. This particular one is called Spice 94. So the distillates that they make for this include like blood orange and I believe like allspice and a few other things in there. Each one has its own blend and then they put those together. There's another one called the Hare, or I think I call it the Hare because the logo is like a little rabbit. That one has like rosemary and English peas, and so it's more herbal. So when you open this, it smells a lot like baking spices, which is really nice because in the cocktail that I'm making, it's adding a lot of complexity the way Angostura bitters might in an old fashioned. They also have one that's very citrus driven. There's other brands on the market. Some of them are available even on Amazon, and they come in full-size bottles. This is just from like a sampler pack that I was able to get sometime last year. Now, in full honest review, I've tried only 2 of the Seedlip products. I thought they were nice. I thought they were complex, but I think they're a little difficult to work with in complex drinks. So they work really well if you're doing like this and ginger beer instead of like a Moscow Mule, or maybe this and a sparkling lemonade and just kind of give it a little extra depth. That's really nice. But when you start adding a lot of flavors, these are really delicate. So sometimes they just kind of disappear in the mix. So it takes a lot of skill, I think, to put these into complex drinks. But that being said, one of the other things that I find interesting is these all have a tiny tartness on the back end of their flavor profile. So when I've tried to use them, I have to dial back the citrus sometimes in those cocktails because these are a little sour and then citrus is a little sour. So if I'm using it in a sour cocktail, like I'm going to today, then I dial back the citrus just a tad. So for this cocktail, we're going to call this, or I'm going to call this the hiatus, because it would be for someone taking a hiatus from drinking. And I'm going to use 1 full ounce of Seedlip, and this one is called Spice 94. I'm going to put that in my shaker tin. And then I brewed a white jasmine tea ahead of time. And I'm going to use 1 3/4 ounces of that. So 1 3/4. And again, this is a double brewed tea, double strength. And I'm going to add 1/2 ounce of lemon. I played around with this recipe a lot, and originally I thought I was going to use a 3/4 ounce of lemon, but the tart back end of the Seedlip, I dialed that back. And then I have a coconut lavender syrup. So this is what I mean, guys. You don't have to just phone it in and use a regular simple syrup. Add some depth to your cocktail. You saw that I used agave in the other cocktail. That's because it's a sweetener with a different flavor profile. Sugar just tastes sweet, but you can use honey, you can use agave, you can use maple syrup. All of those things will make it a lot more delicious. So a 3/4 ounce of coconut lavender simple syrup. And that was a combination where I just took coconut water, sugar, and lavender and made it into a syrup. So I put out the prep sheet and it didn't have the ingredient I'm about to use on there when I put it out because I drank this cocktail a couple times this week and it's really good. But I couldn't get away from how much it reminded me of some of my favorite alcoholic sours, and I love sours with egg white. So guys, if you don't want to do that, don't add the egg white. I'm going to add the egg white because I think it really adds depth, texture, mouthfeel, and even aroma to the cocktail. And what I mean by aroma is I feel like adding the egg white traps a lot more of those aromas, and it brings them to the surface. So it's a really nice aromatic like start to the cocktail, as opposed to when you smell it, it's like there's a lot going on. I feel like the egg white really pulls out all the really strong, nice ones, and then the delicate ones come afterwards, which I really enjoy. So if you don't want to do egg white, you would go ahead and add ice here, but I'm adding the egg white. So here we go. Egg white in, and we're gonna do a dry shake first, no ice. We're gonna do this one because there's nothing in there diluting it. We're gonna shake it for about 10 to 15 seconds. You really just want to break up all that egg. If you feel your shaker start to try to expand, then you can stop. You don't want it to explode. You are creating pressure when you shake an egg white. So now that that's in there, I'm going to add a little ice. Shake it again. And now I know I said it's non-alcoholic, so we don't shake it a ton, but we also really want to chill, and we really want to make sure that egg white gets a really good texture. So let's go for the sweet spot, not 5 seconds, not 10, but maybe like 7. I have to mentally remind myself that I'm doing a non-alcoholic cocktail so that I don't overshake it. So I have this really pretty coupe or cocktail glass. I don't know if I'd actually call it a coupe. And then I'm going to strain this cocktail in there. All right. Beautiful. Texture. I don't know if you guys saw how beautiful that texture was coming out of the glass or out of the shaker into the glass. So the garnish I've created for this is a little heavy. So I'm going to give this a second or two to kind of settle. And what that's going to do is allow that egg white to separate just a little bit from the cocktail and plump up on the top so that it has a little bit of a more solid structure to hold up my garnish. So I have this dainty little lemon slice. I need to get something. Put it down here. There we go, Chandler. I'll get my life together, guys. I promise. So I just have a lemon slice that I covered half of it with lavender buds. I'm going to just sit that over here to the side. And that, guys, is the hiatus. That is so good. Now, I will say this because I've tried it both ways. When you do it with the egg white, it almost takes the cocktail from being a refreshing sour to a really tasty light dessert. The way like lemon pudding or like a light lemon cake might taste. It's more citrus comes through when you do the egg white, whereas more spice comes through when you do it without it. Now, if you don't have access to seed lip, you could absolutely do this cocktail replacing the seed lip with an additional ounce of the jasmine tea. So this hiatus is 1 ounce of seed lip, 1 3/4 ounces of the tea, 1/2 ounce of lemon, a 3/4 ounce of the coconut lavender syrup, and then the egg white, which is optional. If you don't have seed lip, then it would be 2 3/4 ounces of the jasmine tea, 1/2 ounce of lemon, 3/4 ounce of the simple and or the coconut lavender syrup, and then egg white optional. But that, guys, is the hiatus. And see how you can see that nice separation? You would never think this doesn't have booze. Not only because how it looks, but because it is oh so good. And it tastes sneakily. It tastes like those cocktails that have a lot of booze in it that you can't taste and then they kick you in the teeth later. But it doesn't have any of that. So it's kind of nice. You could just like throw these back all day. But yeah, that's the hiatus. So that is my presentation for you guys today in the Give Me a Break class. Few little announcements. Next week, we'll be doing a bunch of riffs on whiskey sours. Now, one of the cocktails that we will be making will be a clarified milk punch style whiskey sour. And I'm really excited. I can't really remember, but I feel like I've done that technique once. I think I did it around Halloween last year, but I believe I demoed it on screen. So I plan to prepare it ahead of time and take a video while I'm making a clarified milk punch with all of the specifications, all of the ingredients needed before the class is even live, so that if you do want to prepare it ahead of time and drink along with me, then you're able to do that. And then I'll also demo it on camera for those of the people that are watching this later that don't necessarily follow me on the other social media accounts and see the video beforehand. So we'll be preparing a clarified milk punch. We'll be doing riffs on whiskey sours, which I'm super excited about. I love whiskey sours. And I'm just really excited about that class in general. And then the other announcement I have for today is, well, I guess two. I'm really bad at this, guys. This is why I don't say how many I have, because I keep remembering things. But I'm doing a giveaway on my TikTok account. So specifically, if you follow me on TikTok, you should be able to see the video. But I'm asking for people who do follow me on there and find my content interesting to just pick one of my videos where I've done a recipe and stitch it or duet it. Show me what you got. And then I'm going to give out a mystery swag bag of a bunch of branded things that I have in my studio. And then the other announcement is that if you do feel inclined to tip me for the classes or the knowledge, or you'd like to have a cocktail curated for you during this class, my link tree is up on my Instagram account at Pandemic Pinup, and also on the TikTok account, which is at Pandemic Pinup. And you can find all the different ways to tip me, whether it's through Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. You can also find easily through links all the past episodes, all the recipes to all of the cocktails that I've made, and just other shenanigans that I get up to. But thank you for joining me this Sunday, and I will see you guys next Sunday for some whiskey sours. Cheers.